The one thing that is becoming more and more clear about the metaverse is the rapidity and the pace of innovation, as well as the proliferation in the number of use cases in the metaverse is continuing to increase at an exorbitant pace, and the metaverse is getting more and more intertwined with what is basically taking place in the physical world, whether it is in the world of music and entertainment, whether it is in the world of owning land for a variety of different purposes, whether it is in the world of medicine and high fashion. The number of use cases that is basically taking place at this point in the time, and the number of investments, or the amount of investments that is basically taking place, is quite significant, and the limits to which the metaverse is basically operating under is just confined to the limits of your imagination. And that's what I want to talk about in this video, is what are some of the new use cases that are rapidly emerging in the metaverse, where potential opportunities may arise. But before I get too far into it, don't forget to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and let's get into it. So one of the new things that is basically emerging quite rapidly is how the work environment may potentially be changing in the not too distant future. When I say not too distant future, I'm talking about a 2 to 3 year time horizon there. Okay, so Bill Gates came out this past week and effectively said that he can see a future where group meetings are basically taking place on the metaverse rather than on Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams or any of the existing platforms that are out there, and of course not the physical environment that potentially people were used to prior to the global health crisis. And investments are currently being made by Microsoft into their Teams product in collaboration with Facebook Meta to effectively make this Microsoft Teams environment associatable or a part of the metaverse. Okay, and this is really just scratching the surface of what's taking place in the metaverse. Facebook Meta recently announced just this past week how they were opening up Horizon Worlds to the entire community that is over 18 years of age. So if you don't know what Horizon Worlds is, it's basically an environment that Facebook Meta created, and it's been up and running since about 2019. But initially it was primarily, you had to receive an invitation for it. But now what Facebook Meta is basically doing is they're opening up Horizon Worlds to just about everyone, such that they can engage and entertain themselves in this environment. And they're opening it up to developers as well. So if you're a developer and are interested in this Horizon Worlds phenomenon and are interested in creating new worlds in this environment, Facebook Meta has the opportunity to do so. And it's going to be very interesting because Facebook Meta obviously has a lot of dollars behind them, right? So there is quite an interesting phenomenon where more and more developers may potentially engage directly with Facebook Meta, potentially putting some of the other gaming platforms that are out there that are actively participating in the metaverse at risk. The use cases on the metaverse are just emerging and increasing even beyond the confines of that. For example, there was recently a news article where a couple basically met on the metaverse and now have gotten married on the metaverse as well. Now, one thing to note here, when I'm saying married, I mean that a little loosely, because technically speaking, if you get married in the metaverse, it's not officially legal, but you can do various things such as holding your reception and things like that on the metaverse in itself. And there are platforms out there that are basically creating this entire virtual environment such that you can execute any of these types of weddings, and you can take that to the bounds of your imagination, right? So you can do any type of party or any type of development such as that through various platforms, such that they can effectively engage quite simply in the entertainment business. Speaking of entertainment, let's talk about Snoop Dogg for a second, right? Snoop Dogg is also investing in the metaverse through, of course, something called the snoopverse. I mean, heck, why not, right? I mean, somebody recently bought land in the snoopverse for $450,000. So what is the snoopverse in its core? So Snoop Dogg is basically designing his own digital stomping ground to include a virtual version of his actual mansion in California, according to Business Insider. An early access pass, which currently costs just under $3,000, allows users to get involved in the development of the virtual world, which includes access to new avatars and play-to-earn games. So thus far, we've talked about the future of work, we've talked about the music and entertainment business, and we've of course talked about gaming as well through the Horizon Worlds platform of Facebook Meta. But that's still just scratching the surface, okay? Because the use cases keep going from there. The metaverse is now entertaining the world of medicine, believe it or not, and there's various surgeons out there that are basically supporting the metaverse as a form of training and development for future doctors. The health industry has now started using components components like augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence in software and hardware to enhance the proficiency of medical devices and expand the reach of medical care, according to CNBC. That's the sciences, and now the use cases are also in fashion. So the fashion industry has by far been a laggard when it comes to any form of technology adoption in the past. But that is not necessarily the case when it comes to the metaverse, and an argument could be made that the fashion industry is actually on the front end of developments that are basically taking place in the metaverse. And there's really two reasons for this. One, there's no bounds to the amount of creativity that you could have in the metaverse. And the second reason has to do with economics in itself, because there's a very limited input costs that are related to creating new fashion or high fashion in the metaverse. And due to that, you have significantly higher gross margins. Hundreds of millions of dollars are basically being sold in the fashion world through the metaverse. In a prior video, I've already covered off on this massive land grab that's taking place in the metaverse over the last couple of weeks in itself. Over $106 million in land has basically exchanged hands within the metaverse, and this is across all the platforms, okay? Sandbox in itself has by far taken a bit of a lead in this domain, and then of course you have Decentraland and of course CryptoVoxels after that as well. So people are buying land for a variety of different reasons. They're building up NFT museums on this land. They're buying land in order to potentially sell it out at a later date as an investment property, if you will. They're buying land to potentially rent it to people in very desirable locations, or what they perceive to be very desirable locations within the metaverse. So there's a host of different reasons in terms of why people are rapidly investing in the metaverse, but also it may have something to do with the amount of personal capital that people have had or has been rapidly increasing over the last couple of years as well. So what's the gist of all of this? Well, the gist of all of this is quite simply that the physical world and the metaverse are rapidly converging at this point in time. The amount of investments that are happening in the metaverse is quite significant, and the opportunities are absolutely unlimited. And I continue to keep abreast of the various developments that are taking place in this space. So this is of interest to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Here's a random video that YouTube thinks will be of interest to you, and I'll see you in the next one.